Got enough to eat tonight. Our honored guest this evening. Made his contributions through excelling in the fine arts. So in developing tonight's format, I thought it only appropriate to have an MC that represents the Kenosha fine arts community. Rita has taught choral music, general music, and theater arts in Kenosha Unified School District for 12 years. She's currently the choral director at Lance Middle School. She owns RG Performing Arts Studio, where Kenosha youth and adults alike can seek instruction in voice, piano, dance, and theater. Rita holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in music from the University of Wisconsin-Parkside, a Master of Education degree in Music Education Leadership from Carthage College, and she is currently simultaneously working on her second master's degree in musical theater vocal pedagogy from Carthage, as well as working on her Doctor of Musical Arts degree in music education from Boston University. She's here with her husband. She has 3 little kids at home, and in her spare time, she MCs the Columbus Day Banquet. This is my daughter, Rita.
Thank you. Dad, it's very kind of you to list all of my schooling in your introduction. It would be even kinder if you picked up the tuition bill. We can talk about that later. It's an honor to serve as your MC tonight, and I'd like to begin by introducing our head table. To my far left is Mayor John Antaramian. Next to him is IA board member and second command of my household, my husband, Ben Gentile. To my right, IA president, Steve Torcaso, his wife, Marie. And finally, our honored guest, Daniel J. Travanti. At this time, I'd like to welcome Mayor Antaramian to the podium.
Thank you. Well, good evening, everyone. That's a pretty weak good evening. I'm all asleep. Come on, wake up. Good evening. Good evening. That's better. My goodness. It's my pleasure to be here again for Columbus Day's celebration, and I do have a commendation. You know what, I'm not going to do this. I always read these things. Now that's something new. I can't believe someone can't hear me. I said I'm not going to read the proclamation. I'm going to read a little bit of it, but most of it not. I think it's important as we celebrate today, and we celebrate the heritage of so many people who've done so much for our community and our country. And in the case of Daniel, we want to congratulate you for all the things you have done, not just in theater, not just in the works that you've done on TV and everything else, but as a person and what you do and what you stand for. Because I think too often we forget how important it is for what people stand up to do and say, and make sure that we all have an opportunity to do that. So today, congratulations. I'm going to read just a little bit of this. I have to put these back on now, though. Whereas Daniel J. Travanti was inducted into the Wisconsin Performing Arts Hall of Fame in 1994 and will be honored by the Italian American Society at its annual Columbus Day Banquet on Sunday, October 13, 2019. Now therefore, I, John M. Antaramian, Mayor of the City of Kenosha, Wisconsin, do hereby congratulate and commend Daniel J. Travanti for his achievements and join your family and friends in congratulating you on being honored at the 95th Annual Columbus Day. But I think I would have changed this just a tad bit. I would have rather have said, as Mayor of the City of Kenosha, we are now naming, or we are honoring you in the sense of this is Daniel J. Travanti Day in the City of Kenosha. So welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. At this time, I'll introduce the president of the Italian American Society, whom I affectionately refer to as Dad, but this is Steve Torcaso.
Thank you, Rita. Before I get started, I just want to let you know to the veterans who come to all the Columbus Day festivities here at the IA, you're going to notice a little bit difference in how we are doing things. You already seen the head tables a little bit smaller. We're going to have less speakers, and that's all so that we can give Dan a little bit more time for when he talks, because he does like to talk. And I think hopefully we'll have enough time to entertain some questions. And he's going to hang around for those of you who didn't get a chance to get pictures with him or an autograph on your program. You'll be able to do that after the program. So, a little bit of business I want to take care of. You know, at the IA, it's great being president, and you know, you get all the attention because you're president, but there's also other people that help you, and we have a great board of directors here, and I want to introduce them to you. I'm going to have them stand, but don't applaud until the end. So first, I'm going to introduce our first vice president, Joseph Torcaso, our second vice president, Michael Principe, our treasurer, Frederick Storrs, our recording secretary, John Bonaretti, the board members, William Bridges, David Filippello, Fausto Fioravanti, Benjamin Gentile, Todd Hagan, Bradley Keeman, Frank Morano, Anthony Zarletti, and the chairman of our trustees, Michael J. Serpi, who's the immediate past president for the last 31 years. Thank you. And also I want to recognize, because tonight we have a number of past honored guests in the audience, and as I was looking around, and the only danger is I hope I didn't miss anyone, so please, if I do, raise your hand. But we have our retired mayor, John, and hold your applause to the end, our retired mayor, John Bellotti. Where's John? Stand up, John. Our Wisconsin Department of Revenue Secretary, Peter Barca. Our trustee, our immediate past president and a past honored guest, Michael Serpi. Judge Wilbur Warren. Gina Matagrano Freebus. Gaetano Cicchini. And Rita Hagan. And I hope I didn't miss anyone. Raise your hand if I did. But that's all very special people here at the Italian American. So this is, if you looked at the program, I hope you did because they're expensive. It is, we are celebrating our 95th annual Columbus Day banquet. And we are honoring Daniel J. Travanti, whose career has taken him all over the country and out of the country, but whose story began just a few blocks from where we're standing right now. He was born March 7th, 1940. He was born in his family's home here in Kenosha on 51st Street and 30th Avenue, and looked out the window and you could see the plant over there. Okay, now you can almost see the IA. So, and he was delivered by a midwife at home, just like in Italy, because they avoided going to hospitals, you know. And Dan's mom, she didn't have a name picked out for him when he was born, so upon his arrival, she named him after the midwife's son. And I believe I read the midwife was Mrs. Raffoni, and she had a son named Dan. Some of you might remember him or the members here, you know, and that's how he was named. And then his middle name, of course, is after his father, John. So Dan grew up here. He attended the old Bain School, of course. And when they built the new Bain School back in, what was that, maybe 95 or so, 96, he donated money for the playground at the new Bain School, $15,000. So he didn't forget his community and where he went. He went to McKinley Junior High and Bradford High School. After high school, he received admission offers from Princeton, Harvard, Dartmouth, and others, and he ultimately chose to continue his education at the University of Wisconsin, where he completed 4 years of coursework in only 3 years' time. He was seen in many stage plays at Madison. He went on to win the Woodrow Wilson Fellowship, which took him to the Yale School of Drama. After his tenure at Yale, he completed his training in the Army Reserves. He was honorably discharged, and he took immediately to a professional theater career, and eventually to our television screens. And I just want to diverse a little bit. And when selling tickets, I heard a lot of those stories about Dan, people who knew Dan. And just one of the ones I want to share was a gentleman named Dan who said he was living in Japan. And when he was living in Japan, he said one of the only English programs on TV was Hill Street Blues. And he looked forward to every Tuesday, but get this, at 2 a.m. in the morning, so he could get up and watch a program in English. Dan, are you here? I didn't. Oh, there he is back there. So that's a true fan. 2 in the morning on a Tuesday, and he said that was his little bit of English every week in Japan. So now I lost where I was. Okay, so aside from his impressive list of credits, which are many, he was on many TV shows prior to Hill Street and after Hill Street, and many stage productions and on Broadway. Dan is a tireless supporter of charities, as I mentioned before. He was honored by Los Angeles KNXT Radio as Man of the Year for charitable works. He's provided support for Foster Parents Plan and a temporary housing and employment program for the homeless called Portals. And even more important, I think, is his candid approach to speaking on his own struggles that life has thrown him. So often, the best way to help others is to simply let them know that you've gone through difficult times too. Diane has done this so poignantly in many charitable service, in many interviews over the years, and this in itself has been a charitable service to a far-reaching number of people that never may be able to be measured, all that good work that you did for them, Dan. And I guess one of the most difficult tasks of growing up in a traditional Italian household when it comes time to leave the nest. And if I can get these pages apart. I hope it's okay to say this, Christopher Columbus. Christopher Columbus said, and I quote, "You can never cross the ocean unless you have the courage to lose sight of the shore," unquote. I applaud you, Dan, for following your talents wherever they have taken you. Dan has always honored his Italian heritage, even advocating for the spelling of his last name after it was Americanized by many others in the industry. And I came across that too, Dan, with the last name, because I was talking Travanti's, okay, are you the Y, are you the I? I wanted to spell it right when I mailed out the tickets, so, and Dan, he stuck with it. He stuck with the I, with his God-given Italian name. Dan has brought great pride to our community, our Italian heritage, through his illustrious career as an actor, and we thank him not only for sharing his talents with us, but for staying so firmly grounded in his Kenosha roots. The Italian American Club is proud to honor you this year, Dan, and will continue to sing your praises for years to come. And we have a little something for you now, and we'll have a little something later. Let me see. This is how I got, a lot of people ask me, how did we get Dan Travanti to be honored guest? Well, John Gehring, local artist, had brought us one of his sketches, and we have many of them in the restaurant, but one was of Dan Travanti. And one night in the restaurant, Dan's nephew Mark and Mark's mother Rita, they were in the restaurant eating, sitting under this picture. And I was here and we were talking, and I said, I'd really love if Dan ever got to town, if he was come to the Italian American and could autograph this picture for us. And that was a year ago in the late fall, early winter or whatever. Well, come Valentine's Day, earlier this year, we were in a restaurant eating, my family and I, and my wife leans over and she says to me, man, she says, that guy over there looks really familiar. You know, I'm kind of always oblivious. They always tease me I'm oblivious to my surroundings. So I look over there and I say, oh my God, that's Dan Travanti. I said, I got to go over there and talk to him. So I went over and talked to him. I know his meal got cold, but, you know, and we talked about this picture, and he autographed it for me right away. And I told him about Columbus Day, how the people would love to see you here at Columbus Day and be our honored guest. And we talked back and forth. And then my people talked to his people. That was me and his nephew, Mark, over the summer. And we had to wait a little bit because, you know, Dan gets job offers and stuff, so we didn't want to announce prematurely that he was the honored guest and then he couldn't make it. So finally they gave me the okay, his schedule would be clear in October, and that's how we got Dan here as our honored guest. We just had to ask. And I have to tell you something. I said it on the radio earlier this week on Peter's show. I said, when I talked to Dan that night, I felt like I had been a neighbor of his for 20 years. That's how easy it was to talk to him. And I think some of you found that out tonight too. He's just an all-around great guy. So Dan, we had John do this picture that we have hanging here, and he signed it, and we want to give this as a little memento to you. Yeah, and where's John? Where's John Garing here? I know John brought some extra prints if someone's interested. And he's going to sell them. Maybe you can have Dan sign them too after the program is done. So Dan, we're really proud to have you here tonight. Okay, so we're going to keep on moving here, Rita.
Okay. All right, we have several people with special commendations to present to Dan tonight. So I'll start by inviting Congressman Brian Stile up to the podium.
It is great to be here with you tonight. I know my predecessor didn't miss this, and there's not a lot of advice that he gave, but it was never miss the Italian-American Society dinner. So it's spectacular to be here with you. If you think about what our country is all about, it's about immigrants coming to the United States and living out their version of the American dream. And I think that's what we're here to celebrate tonight with Daniel. In reading your story, in the spelling of your name, having a name that reads like steel but is pronounced style, in my business, I get a lot of people telling me I should either change the pronunciation or I should change the spelling. And I've always thought to myself, well, I can't do that. It'd be wrong to my Luxembourg heritage. In reading yours, in the journey that you did with your name, I think it's the exact same thing. And so I won't read the entire recognition, but I will say for your 2-time Emmy Awards and your Wisconsin Performing Arts Hall of Fame, you are an exemplary professional career that's greatly appreciated by the residents of Wisconsin's 1st Congressional District. Congratulations and thank you.
Thank you, Congressman. Next, I'd like to invite up what I will refer to as Kenosha's Fab Five, and they are Wisconsin Department of Revenue Secretary Peter Barca, Senator Robert Wirch, Assemblyman Todd Onstad and Tip McGuire, and Assemblywoman Samantha Kirkman. I want royalties on that name if that takes off.
Well, terrific to be with you all, and congratulations, Dan. What a tremendous honor. And as you know, this town has had a long legacy and tradition in the fine arts. And we've always had one of the best music programs in the entire country. Ralph Houghton's well known in that regard. We have a nationally ranked theater program, thanks to Holly over at Bradford. And over the years, we've had many people that were very accomplished in the fine arts, but of course, none that were any more accomplished than you were, Dan. So we're so proud and pleased that you could come back to your hometown. We all were so pleased when you moved just across the border there to be closer to your wonderful family, and course, I went to high school with your nephew Rob and Mark, very dear friends, tremendous people, and your sister-in-law. It's wonderful to see Mr. Travanti here tonight. And I just wanted to say that, you think about people who made a mark and then came back to Kenosha. But, growing up, naturally, Hill Street Blues, everybody in Kenosha watched Hill Street Blues. But it was really America's favorite program. I mean, I think at its time won more Emmys and Golden Globes. Of course, you won many of them yourself than any other show. And then you went on to prominence in so many other arenas. And so I just wanted to add my words of congratulations along with my former colleagues here and let you know how proud we are and how pleased you could join us all. And I want to say, despite the many awards and hardware you're going to walk away with, Dan, there'll be no tax assessments on any of them tonight, okay? So let me turn over to my good colleague next year.
I'd like to thank Daniel for remembering his hometown. It wasn't mentioned before. He's come back and helped Kafasi with fundraisers. He did a wonderful one-act play at Parkside to help out there. So this is a star who has remembered his hometown. Thank you, Daniel.
Well, I've got a plaque and I am going to read it. Citation by the Wisconsin State Legislature, please know you by these presents. Whereas Daniel Travanti is a highly regarded and award-winning Italian-American actor of the stage and screen, and whereas Dan Travanti was born in Kenosha, Wisconsin to Italian immigrant parents, John and Elvira, and whereas Daniel Travanti graduated from Kenosha High School and the University of Wisconsin and studied on a fellowship at the Yale School of Drama, as well as earning a master's degree with Loyola Marymount University, and whereas Daniel Travanti has garnered over 100 television, film, and stage credits with acting roles spanning over 5 decades on some of the most prominent and well-known shows of the recent era. And whereas Daniel Travanti is perhaps most widely recognized for his role as Frank Furillo on the popular television series Hill Street Blues, and whereas Daniel Travanti's talent has been celebrated with the most prestigious awards an actor can receive, including a Golden Globe and 2 Emmy Awards, now therefore be it. Resolved as State Representatives Todd Onsted and Tip McGuire and Samantha Kirkman and State Senator Bob Wirch on behalf of the state of Wisconsin do hereby recognize and honor the career accomplishments and contributions to entertainment and the arts of Kenosha's own, Daniel Travanti, dated this 13th day of October 2019.
Well, I just want to, on behalf of all of us, and we're very lucky here in Kenosha to be with the 4 other legislators that I get to stand up here on the stage with. And the one thing that I remember growing up, first off, I had to turn the knob on the TV set for my parents. And the second thing is I remember a lot about Hill Street Blues. As a kid growing up, I thought it was that cool cop show. Again, I was in grade school at the time that it was going. And I was surprised they would. But again, as a youngster growing up and getting to watch not a lot of shows on TV, one that my parents actually let me watch was Hill Street Blues. And I think of fast forwarding to today and law enforcement today. We need to have that type of recognition for our cops today that you paved the way for. That crime-fighting show that today would mean such a difference in our world. And I just appreciate what you did and how you paved the way here in Kenosha. So again, thank you so much.
Well, there's not much more to add, and you certainly didn't show up to hear politicians speak. So I just simply want to say how incredibly proud we are of your accomplishments, and that this evening is a wonderful way to honor an actor of your caliber. Thank you.
At this time, I'll introduce first Vice President of the Italian American Club, Joseph Torcaso.
Thank you, Rita. I'm a little upset I didn't get a special name attached to my introduction. Wise brother,
I didn't have any nice
fabulous
ones.
brother, smart brother.
I had nothing I could share.
So I am a fellow Carthage alum like Rita, like my wife Audrey, and I'm really excited to introduce our next speaker, the president of Carthage College, Dr. John Swallow. At the age of 15, President Swallow enrolled in the University of the South, graduating in 1989 with honors, receiving degrees in both mathematics and English literature. I was playing video games at the age of 15 in my parents' basement. From there, he attended Yale University, where he earned 2 master's degrees and a PhD in mathematics. He went on to join the faculty at Davidson College in North Carolina, where he taught for 17 years before returning to his undergraduate alma mater in 2011. There, he was appointed provost and subsequently executive vice president. More recently, he served as a trustee at Agnes Scott College in Georgia. Dr. Swallow took the office as the president of Carthage College in July 2017. And I think I can speak for all of Carthage alumni and other members of the community in Carthage that both Carthage and Kenosha is very lucky to have him. Since he joined Carthage, the college has been named as a Best Midwestern College by the Princeton Review, rolled out a comprehensive 4-year career preparation program known as the Aspire program, and just recently announced a tuition reset, lowering tuition by 30%. A little known fact about Carthage College is that in the year 2000, it awarded our honored guest, Mr. Travanti, an honorary degree. So in the spirit of homecoming, here to make a special presentation for Dan, please welcome our next speaker, President John Swallow.
It is a privilege to be with you on this, our homecoming weekend, and it is a privilege to welcome you back, Dan. I have to say that one of Cameron's and my happiest experiences in New Haven, Connecticut was with the Yale Repertory Theater and seeing some Yale School of Drama folks do a play a week in a small basement, also with a little dinner, where they were able to try out play after play after play, start on Sunday, produce it on Friday, and it was just a treat. I'm reminded of history on a day like today, celebrating Columbus Day, and I'm also reminded of the history that brought Carthage to Kenosha. We've been thinking about history this weekend. Our college that started in 1847 in Hillsborough, Illinois, some of you may or may not know that, made a decision in 1870 to admit women. And so this weekend, we've been kicking off our celebration of 150 years of educating women alongside men. I'm delighted to see that, and you may see some pins like this around, and if you'd like to get a pin like this, just come talk to me or Gina Freebus, and we'll get you connected. But also, a bit more than 50 years ago, Carthage came to Kenosha, Wisconsin, invited by this place to be a partner in the education of the region, and we're delighted to be here and want to be an ever stronger partner. And so it is in that spirit of partnership and family that we welcomed Dan, a native Kenoshan, into the Carthage family in 2000 with an honorary degree. And so we are privileged to be here with you, Dan, as you receive this award tonight. So we have a small token for you, but it is an honor and a privilege to be with you. Thank you.
Thank you, President Swallow. Before I introduce the next speaker, I wanted to take a moment to point out that I believe this is the first time that we welcome a Wisconsin Supreme Court Justice to our banquet. So Justice Daniel Kelly, would you stand and be recognized? Thank you for being with us this evening. I advised Justice Kelly to promptly change the last letter of his last name from a Y to an I, and he will be welcomed for many banquets to come if he does so. So thanks for being with us. I'm thrilled to be here tonight to honor a man that came from... Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, we have another speaker. This is Kathy Travanti, who is Dan's niece. If you could come up to the podium.
Most of you know him from playing the role of Captain Frank Furillo in the hit drama series Hill Street Blues. Others probably remember him playing John Adams, the father whose son was kidnapped, then murdered. John Walsh, sorry. He played John Walsh, the father whose son was kidnapped and murdered in the hit movie Adam. For others of you may know him in other series. For me, he's my uncle. The Uncle Dan who has supported me in some very difficult times. The uncle who has encouraged all of us to maintain a healthful lifestyle. He's also helped us try to be strong as humanitarians and to have passion in everything that you do and you say. With that, I bring you my Uncle Dan, who I love very much.
Now I get to be honored to be here tonight. But I am honored to be here tonight because we're honoring a man that came from a small town, but he ran on big dreams. And as someone from the fine arts community, I can tell you it is not easy to justify a career path in a subject that much of the world views as extracurricular. For many of our youth, talking about a career in acting or music or art is simply cast aside as the product of an overactive imagination, and an idea that really has no basis in the real world. Instead, we steer them towards stability, towards predictability, and we forget the lessons that the great minds of the past have imparted on us. Albert Einstein said, "Logic will get you from point A to point B, but imagination will take you everywhere." I believe that fine arts education in Kenosha transcends those notions of instability and unimportance. My middle school kids often have colorful ways of describing Kenosha, one of their favorite terms being Kenowhere. And I always take the opportunity to remind them that while we aren't a big city, we are a diamond in the rough. A simple Google search will tell you that Kenosha has produced numerous big screen actors, authors, TV writers, conductors, painters, the list goes on and on. I knew myself the heavy hitters, Orson Welles, Mark Ruffalo, Conchetta Tomei, Al Molinaro, of course, Dan Travanti, but I have to say that even in doing a little bit of research for tonight's talk, surprised me. And I wanted to share with you just a few projects that Kenoshans have had a hand in over the years. Kenoshan John Stevenson was seen on episodes of I Love Lucy, the Beverly Hillbillies, the Johnny Carson Show, and even did voiceovers for the Flintstones. Kenoshan Francesco Bellotto makes a career in entertainment media, and he's appeared on The View, Good Morning America, many news shows. Kenoshan Tom Racina was the head writer of shows like General Hospital, Days of Our Lives, The Young and the Restless. Kenoshan Margaret Landon wrote the 1944 novel Anna and the King of Siam. And if that doesn't ring a bell, she sold the musical playwrights to that book to Rodgers and Hammerstein, and we now know the story as The King and I. Kenoshan and St. Joe's graduate Jim Rigel is a visual effects artist And you may recognize his Academy Award-winning work on The Lord of the Rings, or perhaps the talent behind what made Patrick Swayze look otherworldly in Ghost. And finally, Kenosha and Bradford graduate Will Schaefer wrote theme music for television shows like I Dream of Jeannie, the Flintstones, the Jetsons, and his father actually founded the Kenosha Symphony Orchestra. So we have Kenoshans currently now on Broadway, in national touring companies and orchestras all over the world, on the big screen, and they're all making their living riding a dream. Dan Travanti started out in drama club, participating in forensic competitions, vying for college scholarships, all while being a straight-A student and excelling at sports. He is truly a shining example that one can pursue a career in the fine arts as an academic, not merely an extra. A former mayor of Baton Rouge once said, "The arts are the best insurance policy that a city can take on itself." One of the most striking quotes I came across from Dan was when he was speaking to his feelings on education and on the very ideas that I was sharing about structure and stability. And he said this, quote, "I say, go to college to furnish your hungry and thirsty mind. Learn, and above all, explore. Study language, language, and language. If you're going to be an actor, that's your tool and your toy." Education, in our current climate of standardized testing and striving to constantly reach that next target, is now thought of as more of a means to an end, rather than an experience of which to take hold of. And Dan reminds us, just as Christopher Columbus did, to explore, to seize opportunities, to grow in the gifts that we've been given. Choose the road less traveled. Dan has demonstrated what it means to follow a dream, to hit bumps in the road, and to persevere. I hope that others can look to his journey for inspiration, guidance, but above all for affirmation that taking risks is often a form of education in itself. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce our honored guest this evening, Daniel J. Travanti.
I almost stepped way back there, which I often do on these occasions, to see how well you're hearing. Is it clear back there? I also like to try to do it without one. Can you hear me? Okay. My head's cold. I'm not completely hiding. In fact, I want somebody to hire me with a mustache, because I like playing dress up. So I'm going to cover it back up, but I also wanted you to see my general fitness. I prepared tonight. I've often spoken off the cuff. When I spoke at Carthage, I did my duty, and I enjoyed it very much. I went to my typewriter. I have a small other talent for writing. When I was preparing for tonight, I thought, don't just wing it, dummy. Give these people something to remember. I'm going to try to do that. Ask not what your hometown can do for you, ask what you can do for your hometown. So if I get an Oscar, do I get a street? My people talk to his people, and his people talk to his people. What does that sound like to you? Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these. It's hard for me to say this. What's the next line? Send these, the homeless tempest-tossed, to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. Please don't forget that. A brief preamble. Actors are commandos who go on raids. So tonight I'm dressed like one, sort of. Also, the world has seen me as this guy in a three-piece suit. So I made a point during those years to appear on talk shows in t-shirts. Because I want them to know I have a body. Also, that's acting. Very few people ever saw me in a three-piece suit. I look pretty good. I said, well, it's still acting. And I stood up straight, which I, Daniel J. Travanti, tend not to do. That fellow was also quiet and measured, which is not exactly how many people would describe me, bouncing off walls. But it was my alter ego, Papa, Giovanni Travanti. If I were an opera singer, I would call myself Daniele Giovanni Travanti. Very euphonious, isn't it? If you can brag about your fitness, especially at my age, do it. I want to be an inspiration to you 55 to 65-year-olds, you youngsters. I'm 79. I weigh the same as I weighed in high school when I played at Bradford. How about that? I have tuxedos that are 30 years old that fit me like custom made. If you're not outraged about what's happening in this country, you're not paying attention. When you're busy making a spectacle of yourself, people ask you questions. People ask you questions. When you're ambitious and you work to gain the attention of your teachers, coaches, friends, and family, and go so far as to dare to try to attract the attention of the world, people ask you questions. What do you do for a living? I make a spectacle of myself. I'm an entertainer. I can prove it. People pay me for this peculiar activity. Strangers applaud me. They write me sweet letters. I'm an actor. When out of a small town or from your narrow neighborhood you set out to be somebody, some people at the beginning notice. My high school speech teacher, John Daniel Davies, said to me one day in his office, handing me a magazine article, "What do you think of that?" The suggestion he was pointing to was the advice that one ought to try to live to make a difference, to improve things near you, to make the world a better place, to leave them laughing and wanting more, make them glad you were here. I don't remember my answer, or if I gave one, or even had one. Maybe I said that I would try. Maybe he didn't require or expect an answer. I don't remember. But I remember the question. That was at least 62 years ago. My ambitious nature, my ego, my narcissism, not of a malignant nature. You think of anybody? My craving of attention, my ravenous psyche, my shouting, sometimes screaming soul, knew what his words meant. They were an exhortation, a vote of confidence. He saw in me an urge to seek recognition. More to the point, He was telling me that he thought I had what it took to go further, to go far. I've been influenced to leave town, to seek what only 2 or 3 large metropolises could offer me in the way of a career. I've been influenced by my genes, by my original experiences, and by my later wide encounters, to return to the starting point, completing my circle. Perhaps the best thing I can say about my hometown is that somehow everything here equipped me to leave it. Seek fortune by doing good works, chasing fame or wealth or respect. Something, anyway, more than a hometown can offer. Perhaps the best thing about a hometown when you're away is that it celebrates you while you're gone, beckons you to return, and welcomes you back, welcomes you home. If that is gratitude, I feel it. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me here. It pleases me to spread good news about anything and to celebrate happy memories. I shall take advantage of this strategic spot behind a protective podium and facing a captive audience. Well, semi-captive. Anybody left yet? I'm a crybaby. Cried 5 times when we were shooting Grey's Anatomy. Anybody see that episode? It impressed a lot of people. Actresses are supposed to be able to cry on camera. The longer I live, the more I have to cry about it. But crying is good. It's a release. I think everybody should say to his sons, seems we don't need to say it to our daughters, cry. If you feel like crying, cry. It's natural. Get it out. Let it go. And keep on going. You flatter me, and that's nice. But I warn all young actors in particular that no matter how many people say they like you, a whole bunch do not think you're such hot stuff. So just keep working and thank the people who hire you and praise you and encourage you, and especially those who just love you, period. And take none of it too seriously. I regard holidays as interruptions, pretty much. I'm a less abrasive Scrooge. But I give gifts all year long because I enjoy that. And I celebrate our nation's good qualities and good deeds out loud and by sending checks. Amedeo Giannini in San Francisco, does anybody know that name? In 1904, founded the Bank of Italy to help poor immigrants, farmers, and all struggling pioneers, many undocumented. By 1949, at his death, his was one of the largest financial institutions in the world. But now, the Bank of America. Did you know that? Glad I came here tonight. His uppermost concern, and this is a quote, the little guy. My idea of celebrating nationalities, cultures, and all citizens, native born and immigrant, past and present, is to credit and honor all the people we stepped on to get here. All the people we hindered from getting here, as well as the people we helped to get here. Until one by one, races and rituals and cultures and languages of all kinds embrace and help and cheer one another. Every single human is special, but no single nationality or culture is as special to me as are all of our heritages combined. So tonight, on the eve of this national holiday called Columbus Day, I celebrate every American citizen. Every citizen of Asia, Africa, North America, South America, Europe, Australia, and even the dozen or so who actually live in Antarctica. I don't know, people live there? Scientists stay for months and months, right? As well as every visitor and supplicant wishing to be a citizen here, no matter how he got here. How did I get to be me? Preordained? Genes? Subconscious? Ask Freud. Is that all fate is? Or does karma pick your genes? More than, I think I've lost track now. I lose track easily these days, senior moments. I was asked to speak to a business organization out west of here. What did the city contribute to my success, they wanted to know. I was flattered to be asked. I was stumped by the question. I let it slide. Robbie, my nephew, was with me. I had several months to think up, dream up my answer. Answers, surely. Such a large issue cannot be covered by a single item. Even a small town of approximately 60,000 people, it doesn't sound so small to me now, what are we, 90,000? Is a complex environment. Even the life of one young man up to the age of 18 is complicated. I did not live in Kenosha thinking my life was complicated. I had complications, all right, same ones every young person has in every town. New York, Chicago, London, Rome. I had issues, family, parents, in very special particular, school, friendships, early sexual stirrings, and those universal and eternal and impossible, certain to derange confusions that pour over you in an invisible, silent, and above all, secret rainstorm brought by ambition, dreams, and the inevitable, perversely seductive and simultaneously threatening big decisions. There were at least 3 weighty problems. There were uncountable others of varying import. How can I afford to get to college? I was calculating and determined. I did all that was inhumanly possible for a young dreamer, an ambitious young badger. I did attention getting work in the classroom, on the gridiron, on the forensic stage, and in the SAT tests. When I got to UW-Madison, I stalked the professor emeritus of the speech department and persuaded him to be my advisor. I'll tell you that story in detail someday. Cute. I had guts. Chutzpah. I sped through the university and met my academic goals, although I was exhausted and deflated after 3 years of extreme loads, and I thought I had missed the honor I had craved. But I squeaked through. In order to make it to the Yale School of Drama, I acted for 2 seasons in a very good summer theater repertory company run by an alumnus of Yale Drama. My first director at UW and the very first adult play I was ever in, I was 18, was also a Yale Drama man and an ally and friend of the former. Calculated, it worked. Kenosha has given me a safe environment, a passionate school system. My teachers were of that breed Some of us now reminisce and sometimes lament losing true educators, dedicated educators, bright, passionate, devoted to their students, expert in their specialties, and inspired by young people and inspiring to me. Our coaches at Bradford were talented and celebrated for their successes on the gridiron. My speech coach was honored and respected in USA high school circles for his winning record in state and national speech contests. I was in the right place at the right time, with many exceptionally right guides. There were no gangs. Anybody feel that way? My generation? There were no missing or overtly abusive children's issues. I don't remember. I remember one in Chicago, and it scared all of us. Little girl. Crime was not a daily topic. My family and everyone I knew worked and actually saved, reared children who were good citizens, and paid off their mortgages, most of them. My brothers and sisters encouraged and supported my loftiest ambitions, and they made a point of celebrating our family successes. My brother Bob was maybe the bravest person I ever knew. Kathy's father. There were disappointments and too many early deaths and illnesses, more than our share, I thought. How does one gauge that? Are you thinking right this moment, are you of my generation and of the next one after? And are you thinking, Mamma Mia? Maybe it was a little nicer then. I don't really. I used to think along those lines. But I now understand that doom and gloom and disappointments and illnesses and setbacks play through all lives and all generations. Some of the electronic hardware is astonishing and bewildering, sometimes exasperating, sometimes useful, sometimes I think often these days redundant. But Kenosha between 1940 and 1958 was my breeding ground, and I'm still here, healthy and solvent, and at the ready to put some more memorable moments on the screen and stage, and to tell my tale. Thank you again for inviting me. Based on my far from complete but reliable recent research, I'm certain that the first Homo erectus, sounds provocative when you put it that way, doesn't it? Homo sapien? Dumbest creature that ever walked. Who designated us that? We did, like Napoleon taking the crown and putting it on his own head. Wise we are not. I'm certain that the first Homo erectus who arose in East Africa had the same problems we have. So did the citizens in the first human villages in Mesopotamia, Athens, Peru, Rome, Japan, London, and early New York. The same daily concerns with the weather, feeding themselves and their children, teenage growing pains, finding meaningful work, marriage complications, ugly war, and troubled peace. Addictions, diseases, very bad teeth, that has improved. Is Santarelli here? No? Greg? Family? My other dentist is Pecos. You know him? Across from the Kenosha Hospital, lovely guy. It's all too brief, right? This is my guiding poem. I am the author. You live, you try, you die. Basta. Religion, when Steve asked me, I said to Mark, ask him what he wants me to talk about. He said anything. I said, anything he wants, correct? Religion is based on the supernatural. It is essentially in the imagination. It requires a leap of trust. It demands blind adherence to the unprovable. Some people call that faith. Politics is earthbound. It is literally from the Greek, the affairs, I'll bet you didn't know this, how many do? The affairs of the people of the cities, polis, metropolitan, politan. That includes the suburbs, of course, and the countryside. The affairs of the people of the cities. Religion does not affect all citizens, only those who choose it. Remaining silent about one's religious beliefs is a valid practice of privacy, in my opinion. Politics, however, affect all citizens. Those who vote and those who don't, those who won't and those who are not allowed to. So I find it generally illogical and personally invalid and a little bit irritating that some people refuse to discuss their politics and defend their silence and secrecy on the basis of its being strictly a private matter. It is not a private matter. It can't be if it involves the affairs of the people of the cities. Your city and mine, your nation and mine, you, me, all together. My politics express my values, my ethics, my morals, although morality is too often, in my experience, more theoretical and religious, and therefore not solidly enough earthbound for my taste. Ethics are more likely to be practical and utilitarian and less likely to be biased. Ethics are usually seen and supported by laws, earthly laws, enforceable by humans, here and now, not theoretical rules enforced by invisible forces. So politics concerns us all, influence us all, affect us all, happily and sadly sometimes, and therefore unite us. No matter what our religion or agnosticism or atheism or race or culture. Politics is our one completely universal unifier. And I repeat, even if we do not vote. My point is that to be a proper citizen, I am obliged to vote my values, my ethics, my morals, my mind and my heart and soul at the ballot box. Please feel free to fact check any claim I make here tonight. I hope you won't disapprove too strongly of my opinions, but of course you are entitled to feel unsympathetic. I once climbed into Mac's Nut Bar in the corner over there. Oh, I was what, I don't know, 8, 9, 10. It was a dare, of course. I was terrified of getting stuck, which I did. Oh, I'm trembling right now, really am. I almost panicked, but squeezed out and vowed never to do anything that reckless again. The fright obviously haunts me. I bought delicious smelling bread from Paeli's bakery on the corner, over on this side of the street. You could smell it every day, but on Sunday, the perfume intensified, floating for blocks up 52nd Street, down which I ran, like one of those cartoon figures at the movies, scurrying toward the squiggly cartoon scent in the air. Across the street, I had Miss Akey, Miss O'Hare, I have them memorized, actually. I just want to make sure I get them in order. Miss Hall, Miss Ware, Mrs. Garrett, and Mr. Murrow. I loved all of them. Bain Elementary. They liked me. I would be on the low pipe railing fence. Remember those? That one there? Some mornings early enough to greet the arriving janitors. When Ma told me I couldn't go to school today because I had un raffreddore, a cold, I'd wait until her back was turned and run out the back door. School was my Aladdin's cave, my playground, my stage. They finally tore it down. Only a few years ago? When was that? Now there's, the police station? For those of you who didn't know. Farther down this street, I tingled, hurrying to the Vogue Theater, especially for those 25 cartoons and double movies and coming attractions, we called them. And the chapter plays, some called them serials, on a Saturday or Sunday. It was bright and sunny when you went in, say at 10 o'clock in the morning, and you staggered out blinking at around 4. I wanted to be in those movies. By the way, how many here recall that the Vogue was known as the Garlic Opera House? Anybody? The Garlic Opera House. Huh? Because the many Italians attending. By the way, you know, garlic is extremely salubrious. It's the old smell of garlic that people grimace at. When you walk into a kitchen or a restaurant, you smell garlic, what do you say? No, you say, oh, it's really nice. It's very good for you. Eat it. Blood, circulation, libido. Trust me, I'm Mr. Nutrition in my circle. 79? Hurt myself. Same as high school. I don't remember ever thinking that we were a clan or a horde or that we were even Italian. But I do remember seeing stromboli and bitter rice, bicycle thief, and shoeshine. The so-called neorealismo, new naturalistic cinema coming out of post-war Italy. Pa took me. Giovanni Travanti. He belonged to the Kenosha Club. Get it? Nash Motors. 37 years. He got a perpetual motion clock, which I wrecked at the Nash plant. Just for me, I think. Bob and Ange and Laura and Emma were gone out of the house, big brothers and big sisters. It was inexpensive, partly because only B movies were included, actually some of the best movies being made, along with studio blockbusters and so-called A films. I didn't understand some of what those people were doing to one another, but I do recall being moved by swirling emotions. I saw many film noir, though I'd never heard the term until I was an adult. They were the low-budget, almost all black and white thrillers and gangster films that had a lot of bad people doing terrible things to one another. I love those movies. You probably see them late night, right, on Turner Classic Movies. They made me sad. I squirmed a lot. I was agitated, in particular, by bad men beating and killing, but especially upset by two sorts of scenes. Those in which the guy went back to the bad wife or girlfriend who was sure to betray him again. I silently shouted, "No, don't do it. She's lying." I would writhe and tamp down my fear and anger and want to jump up and tell him to watch out. Remember Brandon DeWilde and Shane? Great movie. You know that movie? During the gunfight, he sees a man, Jack Palance, about to shoot Alan Ladd in the back and shouts, "Shane, watch out!" Reminded me of me. But the most frustrating sort of scene was the one in which the prosecution was railroading an innocent man while the real bad guy was going free. I went nuts. I wanted to jump into the scene and fix it all. I had to control myself. Life can be beautiful, though. For years in Hollywood, I played dumb bad guys. Well, those were most of the guest star parts. Criminal Minds, anybody seen it? Look it up. Look up my name in Criminal Minds. It's a good thing you saw me here first. The FBI, Barnaby Jones, 3 times, Gunsmoke twice, Heart to Heart, The Man from Uncle Perry Mason, etc. So what happens? The gods smile upon my anguished, crusading soul and make me Farillo Man, the captain who fixes all problems. Ex-wives, current paramour, a menagerie of officers, male and female, honorable and corrupt. We were an equal opportunity offender. Stephen Bochco, our illustrious creator, producer, called us. He died only only last year. Oh my. Whew. Last year, and whom did they call to write the piece for The Hollywood Reporter? Me. Even though we had a falling out. He was right and I was right. He was wrong and I was wrong, but he was more wrong. But he's gone, he can't defend himself, right? But he's in my heart. You can tell I'm a little emotional. Gang members, mayors, and disgruntled citizens. Destiny, right? Dumb luck. Happenstance. Grand good fortune. But a satisfying through line. Some dreams come true. In this very building, I was one of those jabbering, screaming kids running amok under the tables, up and down the staircase and back and forth through the doors during weddings. We ate Toblerone candies and almonds and pastel-colored sugar shells. Somebody earlier was remembering those. And waited for the big baskets of shredded beef sandwiches coming out of the kitchen. We overate and sort of danced, or cavorted, or just bounced around until Pa, or Big Brother Angelo, or Bob, in my case, or someone grabbed us to go home. I've come full circle tonight. I thank you again. I almost forgot. I almost did, and I wrote it, yesterday? I don't remember. I still like my typewriter, by the way, though I use the word processor. A very big question at the movies was how on earth did they did all that caressing and stroking and kissing and rolling around without spreading the makeup. I wondered about it. Then I got to shoot scenes in bed with a gorgeous creature named Veronica Hamill, who is gorgeous inside, by the way. And I knew. I stood up on the bed one day when we were shooting the pilot and crowed, "Well, it's a dirty job, but somebody had to do it." She used to say, "Cover me." I said, "Of course." And make sure my shadow, I'm good to work with. And I was a women's libber way before that term ever existed. I had Ma, Laura, Emma, Rita. It was obvious to me, basically women are superior to men. If anything. Lucky me. Us. If you're going to cite your ancestors' achievements, to be fair, you're obligated to cite their misdeeds as well. Christopher Columbus did not discover America. First of all, he made a mistake. He thought he was in China. He was headed for India. That's why they're called Indians. Did you know that? I won't go into his bad behavior toward his crew and Native Americans because you would want to hurt me. Plus, You cannot discover a country that is already occupied, as an outspoken American Indian chieftain once pointed out. Italians can claim on a cheerier note that America is named after an Italian. There's a little bit of controversy, but it's pretty well established. My great niece Maria was telling me about something else she heard. Amerigo Vespucci sailed around the eastern perimeter of Brazil and later along a section of the New World farther north where we are now. 15 years later, after the first voyage of Columbus, a German mapmaker called the area America after the Latin version of Vespucci's first name. Later, the name was applied to the north. It was all an accident, worth noting in my view, as one of many examples of so-called knowledge we pretty much all agree to live by. Many of those examples are, of course, lies. As I have uncovered one of these after another, I have disavowed them. I'm going to die ignorant. But until then, I'm going to uncover, discover, and discard. That's a wise suggestion I heard from a favorite speaker over 40 years ago. My parents were probably undocumented immigrants. I have no proof one way or the other. Was that bad? I don't think so. Were they good citizens? Yes. Is that all that mattered? Yes. Emphatically, yes. There is no such thing as an illegitimate child. There is no such thing as an illegal immigrant. We are all of us usurpers, so we ought to be modest and polite about our right to be here, and modest and polite and respectful toward daring and brave seekers of a better life. Ma and Pa had no money and not much schooling. I never say no education, because they were plenty smart and wise. So were many, all of your progenitors. Altogether, diversity, homogeneity, heterogeneity, variety, have always been the motor forces of evolution and survival. Inbreeding causes hemophilia and can result in brain damage. Undocumented immigrants pour into the IRS and Medicare coffers every year billions of dollars that they never collect on the other end. So don't talk to me about giving away medical care or help to any of them. And of course, pick our crops, raise our children. Many clean our houses and hotel rooms, and some become Hall of Fame athletes, great entertainers, productive political leaders, influential scientists and inventors, and rich and generous entrepreneurs, janitors, or elevator operators in the Nash Auto Plant, like Giovanni Travanti. All equally worthy human beings and citizens, if they have fulfilled the lawful obligations of American citizenship. To conclude, and I promise not longer than, nobody's left yet? 15 more minutes, after which I'd be happy to answer any questions. Ooh.
Tell us about Angelo, your beautiful brother Angelo.
What about him? I miss him terribly. 2009, he left.
My whole family, my brothers love Angelo, and every day that I was with that guy, in my short time here, I always spoke about you with deep.
It's hard for me to talk about him. He made me play football. He forced me. He said, you and Bonifiglio are going to make a Bono. Tom Bonifiglio, 10 times the athlete I'll ever be. Make him forget Amici and Mario, 10 times the athletes I ever was. I said, play football, you play football. Bradford's famous for football, I'll get killed. well, look at you. Where you built, can you run? I said, yeah, can you catch a pass? I said, no. Well, I had a pretty good, ridiculous success. I don't know how it happened. Who was out there every day that we played on the JVs? Yeah, I didn't know what I was doing. I showed up with a urine sample in the summer, and I was embarrassed. I'd never done that before. And the coaches, they all knew one another, by the way. Tommy and the names now escape me all of a sudden. From Washington and McKinley and Lincoln. Well, they'd all played in junior high football. I was a big nobody. And I couldn't talk, I didn't talk to many of the guys. I just said, well, hi, how you doing? I'm good. I walk in and the coaches are interviewing, and a guy says, we don't know you. Where did you play? I said, I've never played football. Never? Any? No. McKinley, junior high. I said, no, I never. So, what position? Oh, never mind. I was going to ask me my position. I said, He looked me up and down. By the way, I repeat, 180 pounds. Ooh, hurt myself. But I always thought I was skinny. I have skinny wrists, and I still do. Okay, left half. Okay, so I learned those plays. A few weeks in, a couple of weeks, I don't know. They switched me to right half. My head now is going even plays, odd plays, 32 trapezoid, no, 33 trapezoid. Broken bone, middle of practice, never heard such a thing, awful sound. I said, what happened? I think he broke his leg. Fullback. I learned the fullback plays. Left half, right half, fullback, I don't know. All I did was follow orders. They told me where to go, and I ran. And we were the first undefeated JV team ever. And who was out there at every game? With his buddy, usually, shivering, in a little jacket, with his buddy, Angelo. See, I told you. Told you. And then I was a junior, and he kept saying, you should be starting. I said, you're my brother. Of course you'd say that. Right? No, you shouldn't. I don't care. They know it, and they know it. Halfway through the season, and I liked, by the way, he's in town. He's a very good guy, and I liked him then, and I don't know him, I haven't seen him for many years. Got hurt. And I got called off the bench, played 4 games, did not know what the hell I was doing. I just played football character. I was an actor. Deep inside, I was always. And I ran, and I ran, and I ran, and we went home, and a big deal. And Angelo said, come here, we're going to go to the Kenosha News and get the paper. I said, what? Oh, Ange, no, come on. It's what, midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning? Come on, come on. Takes me, and it says, if this is the kind of bench they have, forget about it. And I went, what? It was like reading about somebody else, I swear. And I made honorable mention all conference. I said, huh? Tommy was a wizard with the ball. Terry Moore was a lineman, 210 pounds or something. We had a big line. I loved these guys. They were terrific. They were better than I thought, I don't know what I'm doing here. Senior year, okay, I told you finally, right? I don't know, is it in the bio? I averaged 11 yards per carry. I gained 839 yards. They didn't give me the ball that much. 8 yards more than Alan Amici. I shouldn't be mentioned in the same breath. He won the Heisman, you know that. And then weeks later, months later, somebody said, what about your passing average? I said, what do you mean passing? Oh, that's right, I did screen passes. All screen passes. I did all the gaining. 35 yards average. What? And then I get a notice was it Angelo? Wigwam Wise Men. Isn't that cute? Do they still exist? Honorable mention, high school All-American. I said, well, that's because they just picked the first two. Oh, second team All-State. That's right, forgot. And they said, oh, you got robbed. Well, your family and friends always say that. There's a big guy, lumbering guy, they said, in Milwaukee, who was first team All-State, and I was second team All-State, and that was my football career. I was in 24 games, and we won 23, and we lost the last one. Got clobbered by Madison West, 47-14. But in the last play of my last game, you can't write this, crap. The editor would say, oh, that's melodramatic. It happened. I'm thinking, why aren't they giving me the ball? 47-7. Later, when I was being recruited, the coaches at Madison, from Notre Dame, they came from miles around to watch. They had not done that since Amici, like 9 years before, because they heard the legend, about to be a legend. They heard about this guy, the horse, Alan the Horse Amici, from Kenosha, Wisconsin, at Madison, and he wins a Heisman Trophy later on. They came from miles around, I heard the legend. Well, they came to see Madison West against Kenosha High when I was there. And Tommy Bonifiglio, Mario Bonifiglio's brother, was my quarterback. I repeat, you can't write this melodramatic crap. You can't do it. But it was real. And I'm thinking, they call my play. One of my favorite plays was a trap. 32 or 33 trap, I forget. I fake one way and go the other. Tommy was a magician with the ball, and between us, we were really good. We faked out the refs. And Chuck Jasquich, I'm going to mention him pretty soon. My remarkable coach. I was in awe of my teachers and my coaches. What was my point? Senior moment here. It's pretty good though, right? Great story. You can't make up this stuff. It's too good. Called my play. Oh, and you were not allowed ever to say to the quarterback, hey, what about me? Could we have a play? And you weren't allowed to do anything dirty. He hated that. We were as clean. We won 34-0, 36-0, 32-0. Oh, one time, Janesville. I carried 7 times. I gained 4 touchdowns, and they took me out. And I felt bad. I thought, this poor team. What? I felt terrible. We won 28-0. And Jasquich backed off. And because we were beating them up, and not nice. So Tommy calls my play. I get the ball and I run, and I keep running, and I keep running, and I'm thinking, why isn't anybody tackling me? I get to the safety, who is Jim Bakken, who ended up being a kicker for the St. Louis Cardinals. Anybody remember Jim Bakken, Madison West? He was their quarterback, and they said he did everything for his team, including blowing up the balls. Well, that was Tommy on our team, only Tommy was better. I went 74 yards for a touchdown. Huh? And the headline read, one bright moment, etc., while we got killed. And if I hadn't had that one run, I wouldn't have gained the 830, well, subtracted from 838 here, 39, all right? And I wouldn't have gained a few more yards than Amici, and it was all just stupid happenstance and big deal. Oh, okay. One time during a break from Hill Street, when we all go home, Mike Warren, remember Mike Warren? Hill and Renko, Mike Warren and Charlie Haid, who watched the series. Mike was a genuine All-American. Mike Warren. He was on Wooden's first dynasty team that won, 10 in a row, 9 in a row, Rob, 10 in a row. And he was never recruited. Lovely guy, you'd love him. He's a sweetheart of a guy. and a hell of an athlete. This is a guy like Tommy who could take a baseball bat, a driver, or a putter, or a tennis racket, and I can't. I can fake it. I'm a good actor, and I had pretty good, moves. But I don't have near the talent that Robbie has or Mark. If they'd had my size, a little bigger, they would have been. It was a bit of a fluke. I don't know how that stuff happens. What was I saying? Oh, Mike comes back from the break and says to me across the soundstage, stage 15 in CBS Studio Center, "Travanti, you're a liar." I said, "Mike, why? You never talked to me that way. What did I do? When did I ever lie to you?" He said, "I just came back from Indiana, his hometown, and I talked to a guy who played against you from Horlick or Park. And he said, you are great, because I'd been saying, Mike, when you're busy making a spectacle of yourself, the legend grows. I wasn't that good." She called me a liar. I said, no, and I'm not being modest. I just never thought. I said, okay, you're right. I was great. All right. But I knew I wasn't good enough to play in the Big Ten, so I didn't. And if you want to invite me back and tell you all those gory, ridiculous details, everybody's ready to leave, no? Are you? I would like to read one more thing. I made this commencement speech 20 years ago. When was it? When did our president here say Carthage College? They asked me to do a commencement speech, and then a little while later they truly honored me with an honorary doctorate. I did an hour-and-a-half presentation, but I did my duty again. I sat down and I really wrote something. So if you'd like to hear it, I say it's as good a summation as my feelings about growing up in Kenosha as I could possibly express to you. I know myself only a little, but every year I get to know me a little better. And if you ask me later, I'll tell you what the president said about this speech, which I didn't see until about 6 weeks later. I still like getting A's. I was 60 years old, and I didn't. But every year I get to know me a little better. Some days I wish I could just leave me and be someone else, anyone else. I'm stuck with me. But since I've always felt this way, I became the only thing I could be, an actor. I've had more failures than successes, but I refuse to quit. And fortunately, fans, including people in my business who do the hiring, remember only the good work. I remember it all. Some other day, if you wish, I could come back and tell you hair-raising stories of rejection and disillusionment, of disappointment and grief, but not tonight. Today is a day of honoring our country and our citizens. Thank you again for inviting me. I'm altering this as I go along to fit this occasion. Most of it does. You flatter me. I often think of myself as an imposter, but I don't want to impugn your judgment. I've not yet gotten over wondering, often, when I've been in a similar situation, and there have been a few. If you couldn't have found somebody a little more significant. On the other hand, lest you think I am charmingly self-effacing, I've had for many years of this long career the feeling that you are, and they are, all those producers and directors who did hire me, and especially those who did not, were and would have been lucky to get me. Can you tell yet? I'm an egomaniac with an inferiority complex. I'm an entertainer. So I've come here tonight to entertain you. John Daniel Davies taught me this. Tell them what you're going to tell them, then tell them you told them. I was what, 16? He was Mr. Davies to us all at Mary D. Bradford High School, only we called it KHS. That's what my letter jacket says. I spent many out-of-class hours in Mr. Davies' office, not as punishment and not idly. I worked when I was there, first on my dramatic declamation, as it was then called. He felt my chances were better than good in the upcoming Forensic League regional and even the national competition. I couldn't imagine the latter. And I tried not to think about the preliminaries. I wanted to be in that event. I did not want to attempt original oratory. But Mr. Davies' will prevailed. I would practice my declamation, and I struggled for weeks to compose a decent oration. I followed Mr. Davies' dictum, and that helped. I wrote an oration. It had a certain balance and some dramatic flourishes, but basically it was empty and phony. When I read it for my mentor, or I should say half delivered it in his office, he smiled knowingly and said, jingling his keys, he was always jingling his keys, "Well, you'll win." On delivery. His delivery was impeccable. With the merest pause after "win" and a tilt of his head as he spun away to continue his rounds, he was right. I did all right with that vapid little piece, but I never thought it was more than pretty well written. Substance. I was relieved to find out later, came, well, later. One Saturday, this Jupiter, at least he was to me, suggested coaching me at his Elks Club. Going downtown for a special session with Mr. Davies literally gave me, at the age of 16, palpitations. Afterwards, he said casually, "You know, I think you might have a career ahead of you as an actor, if that's what you want." I have words to describe my feelings then, but they wouldn't be evocative enough. In the fall, I was practicing more with my body than my mind, though mental discipline was crucial to those workouts as well. Charles "Chuck" Jasquich was the coach of the varsity football team. In his heart, he was a teacher first. He liked athletes who were good students. I was determined, you might say a determined, rabidly good student. Many years later, I understood for the first time that much of my energy came from a need for approval. In my house, Ma and Pa were emotional. Sometimes I felt so much emotion that I thought I couldn't go on living. It was at such a high pitch. Not that Ma and Pa didn't love and care for me. My family, no family, not even traditionally devoted Italian immigrant parents and 4 equally attentive big brothers and sisters, or any other family on the planet, had enough approval or extra time to give me my fix. But teachers did. They were always there to teach me. They were at Bain Elementary and McKinley Junior High, and at the University of Wisconsin at Madison, the Yale School of Drama, and Loyola Marymount in Los Angeles, and in many film and theater companies. They were at my service, and they were an audience, my attentive audience. Coach Jasquich was so good an audience that he knew what to say to each player, how to glance or glare at each one, and what tone to apply to elicit the response he wished from each. All for one purpose: to win. Not to punish, not to humiliate, not to embarrass, and not for personal gain. One afternoon during practice behind the now erased Lakefront Stadium downtown, he embarrassed, humiliated, and punished me with remarkable precision. He was over on the sidelines with the team and the coaching staff. I was on the other side of the field, not noticing that I was alone. I had run out to cover a pass, practicing defense. I hated defense. I got no glory there. I could have been hurt. I was a fool. Somehow, running straight up the middle with the ball hugged to my body on offense through huge opponents, all concentrating on not only stopping but destroying me, never scared me. I was too afraid of fumbling, and I was the center of attention of not only the enemy, but of my own superb team. As I trotted back to where they were all standing, I suddenly saw that everyone was looking at me. I had loped out half-heartedly, failed to prevent the catch, grumbled to myself, and started to jog back to the others. When I was in the middle of the field, the sun, a burning spotlight I had not sought this day, and all alone Zeus spoke. Travanti, you shatter a principle I've held for my entire coaching career, that if a guy can play offense, I can teach him to play defense. Why don't you go make a declamation? I learned to play defense. Okay, I can't lie. Mostly I relied on my defensive end, Tom Brickley. Between my convincing portrayal of a linebacker, I'm an actor, right? And Tom's genuine skill, we were a brick wall most of the time. I received some of the credit on our end of the field, but trust me, Tom did it. Miss Hall had warned me about shirking, and I was still learning. She was my first grade teacher at Bain. One day, she executed the dreaded knee-hole isolation punishment. When you did less than your best in Miss Hall's class, the worst thing that could happen to you was to be put down there on your haunches for a short period. Remember those desks? Which seemed very long while everyone tried not to watch, while you tried not to cry or touch Miss Hall's skirt and prayed for the humiliation to pass quickly. But before she went through with that sentence, stern but compassionate, tough but sweet little Miss Hall, with tears in the corners of both eyes, leaned close and whispered straight into mine something like, Daniel, I want you to understand that I had to do this, even though it hurts me, because you were naughty and you know the rules. And someday, I believe you are going to be, and I don't remember the exact words, you're going to be known by many people, and I want you to be a good man. And Jaskers thought he was tough. Had enough, I can see. Had enough, eh? I don't blame you. Am I going on too long? Yes? Probably. Thank you for inviting me.
It's not a Golden Globe, but it's Kenosha's Oscar. We have a plaque to present to you, and you're only the 50th person who's been an honored guest here at the Italian American. Thank you very much.
I may have gone on too, I did go on too long, but this is too much. It's too much, but thank you.
Here's a little Hill Street Blues. Remember now that we're going home, let's be careful out there.